Welcome to Balancing Hormones, Empowering Lives Naturally and Holistically. And this is the beginning of a three-part series on diet and menopause. And we're going to answer a lot of questions, such as, why am I eating all the right foods but still gaining weight? Right? That's like one of the most common. Menopausal women, many women suffer with this. Why am I looking and feeling older than my years? Why do I feel so many symptoms when I'm on HRT? I'm supposed to get rid of all that. Why am I depressed or moody? Why can't I sleep? We will answer all these questions and so much more and give you answers that will help you go through menopause gracefully and with resilience. All right, let's get started. Hello. I am Dr. Noone Fielding with Balancing Hormones, Empowering Lives Naturally and Holistically. And I am doing a three-part series to answer a lot of questions about what you should eat and how diet affects our symptoms, our menopause, and helps us reverse our age. Or, on the opposite end, increases our symptoms and accelerates our aging. So why should I eat organic is one of the things that a lot of women don't understand. And I'm going to explain that to you and why it's so important and what kind of impact it has on your hormonal well-being. Let's get started. So years ago, when organic started to become a thing and it started to show up in the grocery stores, one thing that was definitely an impediment to eating more organic was the expense. It was more expensive. And I really understand that. It impacts all of us. I do know, however, that it is really important for our health, and I'm going to give you more details and I'm going to explain to you how to deal with this, but to eat as much organic as you can. So if you're not eating organic, there are things that you can do to improve your well-being, knowing that you may be taking in a lot of these herbicides and pesticides that are very prominent in the US. So the first thing that I discovered was that there is a major difference between the nutrient from the 1930s, which is about when they started to measure this, through today. This chart happens to be from the 1980s, and even in the 1980s, which is also quite a long time ago from today, there was a 5 to 40% decline in the mineral components of our food. And I'll explain a little bit more as we go on. But that included the calcium, magnesium, iron, copper, sodium, potassium, and phosphorus. And you probably are more familiar with some of the things that are associated with calcium deficiency, magnesium, iron. And a lot of women in early menopause, like in perimenopause, are diagnosed with iron deficiency anemia. And one of the reasons is because it is not as much in our food as it used to be. And magnesium deficiency is a very important one also in menopause, and many women have some of these symptoms that can be associated with magnesium deficiency, and it really impacts our mood, our bone health, and our sleep are three of the biggest impacts in menopause. So in mood, it was found that postmenopausal women with low magnesium levels have a much higher rate of depression than those who have adequate levels. So the way that's associated is that magnesium is involved in creating serotonin and norepinephrine, which are chemicals that help improve your mood. Magnesium glycinate is one of the types of magnesium that can help with anxiety and stabilize your mood. And there are actually different types of magnesium, and there is another one that I think it's taurate that can go through the blood-brain barrier and also helps with sleep. And so there are various types of things that magnesium does, and different forms have different functions. But the important thing is to make sure that you're getting enough for mood. So bone health is another one because it's very important. When your estrogen levels go down, we know that it can lead to osteoporosis and loss of bone density. And if you don't have enough magnesium, that is one of the reasons that happens. And it also is very involved with sleep. So the other deficiency symptoms that you may notice and then either get tested or go on a magnesium supplement can also cause night cramps, restless leg syndrome, nausea, low thyroid, and high blood pressure. And it could all be due to just having a magnesium deficiency. So it's important to know if some of these symptoms are due to deficiencies or if you really need to be medically treated for it, right? Because you get on medications, all they really do is correct the symptom, but are they really correcting the underlying problem? That's what we want to do with holistic care. So there have been many different studies that have looked at the nutrient density of our food supply. And when they compared the organic to conventional fruits and vegetables, they found that there was a mild to moderately higher concentration of nutrients in organic produce. It's just the way it is. And organic produce was also found to be more flavorful. And I don't know if I think part of the reason may be because it has more of those nutrients, and there's something to do, obviously, with taste than conventional, and it may also store better. So I know that when I go to the farmer's market and I buy organic produce, it does last in the refrigerator a lot longer. So I think that's another really great reason to buy organic. And then on average, they found, I highlighted this here, 11 nutrients, 236 matched pairs, nutrient levels in organic food was 25% higher compared with conventionally grown crops, and differences up to 300% have been reported. So that's really pretty incredible, and it gives a really good reason for us to consider buying organic. And I try to do that as much as possible when it's not too cost prohibitive. And a lot of it has to do with what's produced locally and looking for sales on things that are more plentiful, so they're going to be a little lower cost. So when you look at it from that perspective, there really isn't much difference in cost at that when you're doing that. So another thing that I found too is that something like corn, that there was a very significant difference in the amount of protein in our corn supply. Because when they started mass producing corn for the entire world, they actually changed the seeds that were making the corn so they could get a higher density. And in the process of doing that, it tremendously increased the amount of starch, which is what we're trying to cut down in menopause and in our life because we eat too many carbs, right? And it decreased the amount of protein. So back in the day, we hear that the Peruvians, the Incas, the Hispanic people ate a lot of corn. The corn that they ate was much different than what we eat. And they were able to make a lot of their meals around that because it was much more nutrient dense than the kind of corn that we eat. There are organic farms that are producing this kind of corn. We can actually help to bring a lot of that back and bring back a more nutrient dense product. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So this is another reason that I'm going to talk about two specific herbicides that are very common. One of them is atrazine, and it's tied to hormonal irregularities. Women who drink water contaminated with low levels of this weed killer are more likely to have irregular menstruation, lower estrogen levels, and that, of course, will make your menopause a lot worse, right? You're already having your ovaries shut down, and then on top of that, you're having this herbicide lower your endocrine levels. And it's called an endocrine disruptor because it interferes with the normal hormonal functioning in your body, and it also increases inflammation. So you're going to have more joint pain, you're going to have more inflammation in various respects, which can lead to heart disease and many other things, and also affects your glucose balance. So it can actually cause you to become diabetic, and not be able to regulate your own glucose properly. That's pretty interrupting there. I know that in menopause we're not as concerned with our fertility at that point, but I'm sure you have family that are, and it just gives you an understanding of how much these pesticides interfere with our hormonal system. So this was a study that they looked at 325 women that were going for infertility treatment, and they found that they had a much higher level of pesticide in their body when they were not fertile versus those that had better outcomes in terms of the fertility treatment. So that's also a very important factor to consider. Now again, some of the estrogenic and endocrine effects is that not only to affect women, but it also affects men in terms of fertility and decreases the testosterone, delays puberty, and reduce the sperm count. And this is a worldwide problem where there's this increase in infertility in men and women. And part of the reason is because of these herbicides that have crept into all aspects of our life. It's not just in the food we eat, it's in the air we breathe, it's in the water. They've even found it in diapers. Okay, so it's not only what we used to expect. And exposure during pregnancy increases the risk of developing diabetes during your pregnancy. And in a rat study, it lowered the metabolic rate. So that means it can be a cause of increased obesity, increased body weight, intra-abdominal fat, and insulin resistance, which leads to diabetes. So there are just a lot of connections here in terms of a lot of women ask why they're on HRT or why they're on certain things, and they're gaining weight, they're doing all this exercise, they're trying to do everything they're supposed to do, but yet they could be toxic from these kind of herbicides and pesticides. And I wanted to bring up one other one. Atrazine was one common one. The second one is glyphosate, and this is the one that is everywhere. And this article was talking about how the really global contamination that not only affecting the soil, surface, and groundwater, but they've even found it in diapers, medical gauze, absorbent female hygiene products, meaning tampons. So these glyphosates have shown up increasing the incidence of breast cancer and estrogen dominant symptoms, and that can lead to weight gain, can lead to thyroid problems, and it's particularly important in interfering in menopause. So these are just, you can't avoid it completely, but at least trying to do the things that you can have control over is going to empower you to improve your symptoms in menopause. All right, and it's also a risk factor for thyroid issues. They found that these endocrine disrupting chemicals are partially responsible for it's increased in women anyway. It increases with age, with not getting enough iodine. That's another major deficiency in our world. There's a genetic predisposition, and all of those together are increasing risk for hypothyroidism. And they can interfere with the whole functioning of your hypothalamus, pituitary, thyroid, all of those functions. And the thyroid is the one that manifests the most, where they'll start giving you medication when a lot of it could have to do with just needing to rebalance these organs and clearing your body of these disrupting chemicals. And some of the symptoms, so that you can recognize it, is you can start having sleep disturbances. Hot flashes and depression are actually can be caused by hypothyroidism, moodiness, weight gain, joint pain, urinary tract infections. And how often do you hear women with menopause having some of these symptoms? It may not only be estrogen, it could be reactive of being hypothyroid. So what can you do? These are some of the practical steps to minimize the effects of what we've been talking about with the endocrine disruption in general, maybe having deficiencies. So eat organic as much as possible so that you avoid the potential of the herbicides, pesticides, and also getting better nutrition. Consider detox methods if you've had heavy exposure, meaning that you live very close to farms where they spray groundwater that may be contaminated. Those are different things that can make you have a heavy exposure. Mild exposure, just the way you've been eating, those kind of things. You can take antioxidants, increase your antioxidant regimen with quercetin, vitamin C and E. They have been found to reduce the effects of herbicides in the body. Drinking enough water. I know, I can't believe how many people just won't drink enough water in the day. I've actually had one of my professors talked about how not drinking water was like not flushing the toilet. And the toilet in your body, you need to drink enough fluids in order to clear all that stuff out that we breathe in and eat, and even our stress level can cause toxins in our body. All right, and then eating more fiber. Fiber is another way that you can, it's like water, but for the gastrointestinal system internally, that fiber does pull out a lot of toxins, and that's why people who eat a lot of fiber actually do live longer and they're a lot healthier. I have found it very important. And also supplement your diet if you are deficient, like you have some of those symptoms that we talked about, and consulting with a provider that understands the holistic deficiencies and what you need. That magnesium is certainly one of them, and like I said, the iodine for thyroid. There are a number of different ones, and I have a different video that will go through that in more detail for you on micronutrients. All right, that's some things you can take control of. So what now? 1, subscribe. If you like this video and it was helpful to you in any way, please subscribe and like our video and ask questions and comment. That really helps us know how the content is doing and what you're getting out of it and what else we can do for you. In part 2, we're going to give specific life-changing information about how much and what kind of protein, carb, and fats that you need to optimize your menopause. And there's so much misinformation about that. And part 3 will be about the essential micronutrients that I touched on a little bit today with the iodine and the magnesium, and talking about the vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients that are going to help you not only prevent the symptoms of menopause, but prevent dementia, diabetes, ADHD, and of course the big C, cancer prevention. So I hope you enjoyed it. My name is Dr. Noone Fielding, and I really enjoyed being with you today. Namaste.